Back again with World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley speaking from Washington. So, the story of the French wars of religion, the civil war over almost 40 years, is that Calvin from Geneva decides to send in his preachers, and he starts with the top rebels of the French feudal aristocratic nobility. Neo-feudalism would be the equivalent today. And they decide to use religious questions as a cloak for a rebellion of the nobles, which they'd had before and they would have again. And in the history of the French Civil Wars by the great Venetian historian Enrico Caterino d'Avila, Davila is somebody who got the attention of John Adams, very much interested in Davila, wrote about him. There's this great scene where the leaders of the French nobility say, look, if we go out and start agitating and say, long live the privileges of the nobility, we're not going to get anybody. But if we go out there and say, long live the true gospel of Calvin, we can get all kinds of dupes. And that's what they did. And that's how this got going as far as it did. So much so that whereas under the reign of Louis XI, when the Duke of Burgundy tried to take over Paris, the bourgeoisie, the city people of Paris, fought alongside King Louis XI against the feudal aristocrats led by the Duke of Burgundy, Charles the Bold or Charles the Foolhardy. But later on then, 100 years or more later, you've got King Henry IV representing the future of France, trying to take over Paris, and the people in Paris fight against him because they've been completely disoriented, fooled, duped, manipulated by this religious story. So I think we have to see the use of religion as a means of mass manipulation. Now, of course, what happened then in the wake of all this, just to finish up the historical analogy, after 1648, or even during the 30 Years' War, you get the emergence of people who realize that religious considerations cannot guide the destinies of modern people, especially in multi-religion, multi-ethnic states or regions. And one of the greatest, the first of these, is Cardinal Richelieu. Cardinal Richelieu, Cardinal of the Roman Catholic Church, decides to make an alliance with the Protestant Gustavus Adolphus of Sweden and otherwise pursues an interest of French national strategy, and does it quite successfully. Mazarin, then the Italian transplanted, his successor, does the same thing. Otherwise, out of the 30 Years' War, you get people who understand that the answer to the human condition is not found in religious enthusiasm one way or another, not fanaticism, not hysteria, but you need a national state, and again, it better be a robust one, and there better be economic progress. A couple of examples. Jean-Baptiste Colbert of France, right, the finance minister for Louis XIV, right, in this period, the second half of the 1600s, this guy builds the Canal du Midi, at that time, the greatest civil engineering work in Europe, and gets France on at least a course towards reconstruction and prosperity, unfortunately then interrupted by the excessive wars of Louis XIV. And then in Prussia, you get the great elector who essentially launches the process of German revival from this crisis. And coming soon after them, Leibniz. And here you get the key idea that it's got to be based on science and in particular, as he says, you've got to make energy available cheaply. He said, we need cheap fire, billiges Feuer. We've got to make energy available at low cost for economic development. So that's the story of modern Europe. That's where civilization comes from. But in order to get that, you've got to reject the turbulent claims of these various religious figures of whatever type. As for the French nobility, just to finish their story, they, of course, as I've said, in the late 1500s, in the late 1400s, the French nobility were just that. They came out and said, we demand feudal privilege, except we're going to call it the public good. The public good means feudal privilege, private warfare, aristocrats rule the roost, king is weak, population crushed, peasants in real bad shape. That's in the 1400s. In the 1500s, they come forward and say, we are the true Calvinists. We are the true Reformed Church. We are the true supporters of the gospel and all this. In the 1600s and 1700s, these same people are largely atheists. The Venetian party of France essentially means that they are they're all skeptics, libertines, what have you, the cabal of the libertines. They're fighting against the cabal of the devout. But then in the 1800s and the 1900s, they become very devout Roman Catholics again. And the only common denominator of all this, going from aristocrats to Calvinists to atheists to devout Roman Catholics, is that the French nobility wants to revolt, and they'll find a way to revolt. It means, therefore, that if you allow your public discourse, right, your public debate, public political life, call it that, to be monopolized by provocateurs, Elmer Gantrys, religious hucksters, and the rest, you are going to be in very, very bad shape. The answer to all of this is an appeal to rational self-interest, and that's what you get out of France in these areas, right? Henry IV says, let's have a chicken in every pot. Isn't that better than let's go out and kill the infidel, be it Roman Catholic or Calvinist or whatever else, right? Because there are other groups that then come in. Let's have a chicken in every pot. That's eudaimonic legitimation. In other words, the modern state has got to deliver the goods. It's got to deliver economic progress, a rising standard of living, progress towards full employment, if not full employment itself. And you can see, therefore, the entropy of the world, the drift of this world, largely due to Obama, although not only, is that we're not going anywhere. There's no positive motion being generated from any of the centers of power, and therefore the world essentially is adrift. It's a plaything for these various cliques of provocateurs, intelligence agencies, and so forth, who are interested in imposing these crazy agendas. Samuel Huntington is gone, but his lunatic crackpot War of Civilizations, Clash of Civilizations lives on. Now, I said before, this is not just a media event. It can indeed be much more. We have Napolitano coming out now with a report saying essentially that a new 9/11 attack always remains possible. And we've seen during the time since about April, May, the drumbeat for the attack on Iran building up. It's now 3 years since the Kennebunkport warning issued by me in late August of 2007, on the verge of this hijacking of a loaded nuclear-armed B-52 by the faction that at that time was speaking through the mouth of Cheney, controlling him and giving him his lines. And then on September 7th of 2007, we then had the Israeli attack on Syria. Attack on what, I'm still not sure, but some kind of bombing, some kind of air incursion by the Israelis into Syria occurred on September 7th, 2007. And then a whole series of secret purges of the U.S. Air Force, stand-downs and commissions, but none of this in the public eye, and nobody with the guts of the intelligence to come forward and make this all public. So now we're told that we've got homegrown terrorists. We've got Zazi of Flushing, Queens. We've got Major Hassan of Fort Hood. And, of course, we've got al-Awlaki, the CIA lackey. And this al-Awlaki, another obvious provocateur, set up there by the CIA and operating there to sheep dip anybody that you want to accredit as being part of al-Qaeda. You get them to exchange a few emails with al-Awlaki, the CIA lackey. The big question to the world public is, how stupid can you be? How long do you want to be this stupid? Do you really enjoy being duped? Do you really think it's better to be duped than to understand what's happening? Or isn't there a better way? There probably is a better way. We'll be back in a minute.